them and see how they're being modernized. So really a massive transformation is taking place in this area, which is mirrored in also other areas of Berlin. Yeah, Berlin then in the 1870s was a very much smaller city than today. On the left you can see a restored brewery. This was the largest, it's a cultural centre today, the largest brewery built in this part of the city. We're on a high bank on the northern section of a river in which Berlin was built in the valley 8 centuries ago. And breweries need large basements to store their beer, and because of the risks involved in flooding in the city, in the valley, above all because of the very high water table, breweries were built up here where there is less risk of flooding beneath the ground. And we're now going down to descend into the valley where the city was founded at the beginning of the 13th century. And the Kastanienallee is the name of your street, and those chestnut trees were planted there as an exception to keep the cellars cool in the summer. Here on the left is one of 3 former Jewish cemeteries in Berlin. This is the new cemetery on the left, which was not desecrated during the dictatorship, unlike the old Jewish cemetery which disappeared in 1941. Here on the left is the Sennefelder Platz. If you're using public transport, that's the nearest subway station to your school, and down on the right the Schweterstraße, that takes you to the Kastanienallee where your school is. So we have just gone around in a circle. Well, we're now going down into the valley, another big brewery on the right hand side. The beer gardens, you may have heard of those, they're very famous in the south of Germany particularly. They were built here near the breweries. In the winter, the cold weather kept the beer cool. In the summer, to prevent the beer warming, these chestnut trees were planted, and because of the very thick leaves in the crowns of those trees, they kept the walkways here where the beer gardens were much cooler than if the normal trees which you find in Berlin, the Berlin streets, which are lime trees, they would not have the same effect. Well, the valley is not a very deep valley, as you can see. We're now there, but nevertheless it is one, and 8 centuries ago it was also different to the way it is today, much lower. This area here, you can see by these buildings, was developed around the same time as the area where your school is in Prenzlauer Berg, and you can see a similar style of apartments. The height is restricted by Prussian legislation of the 1860s. The maximum height of these buildings cannot exceed 22 meters in these older parts of the cities. There are exceptions. You just saw the television tower, which we'll see again in a moment. Some other high-rise buildings which were constructed principally during the East German period, but the buildings of the 19th century and in the historical areas of the city, this maximum height is still respected today. So this is why these buildings are the height they are. Despite new construction, no higher buildings have been built since then. We now come to Rosenthaler Platz. That's the underground station there. You can see this is where Jews Gate once stood. There was have been a series of walls surrounding Berlin,